Hello and welcome to Mind Gourmet. My name is Nina Kaiser. I'm the co-founder of Mind Gourmet and, as always, your host today. My today's guest is Dr. Connie Kaplan, the author of this gem of a book, The Invisible Garment, 30 Spiritual Principles that Weave the Fabric of Human Life. And before we dive into our conversation, here's some essential information about Connie. Connie Kaplan is a spiritual mentor who lives in California. She holds an undergraduate degree in English, a master's in radio, television, and film production, a second master's in psychology, and a doctorate of ministry. Raised in Texas as a minister's daughter, spirituality has been an important foundation for Connie's life. In her early adult years, she taught school and then moved to Los Angeles to work in television production. In late 1986, she was suddenly struck with a mysterious virus which rendered her almost helpless for 2 years. During this time, unable to work and incapable of handling normal life circumstances, she experienced a profound spiritual transformation, which altered not only her inner experience of life, but her outer expression of life. While she slept her life away, she dreamed herself awake. Since the early 90s, when Connie was able to return to the so-called normal world, she has devoted her life to sharing what she learned during this and subsequent mystical awakenings. She teaches dreaming as a spiritual practice as well as a unique form of theology, which she has entitled Your Invisible Garment. This spiritual understanding of humanity's purpose centers on an understanding of each person's unique spiritual configuration. Dr. Connie Kaplan has authored many books: The Woman's Book of Dreams, Dreams Are Letters from the Soul, The Invisible Garment, and A Colorful Life. She has clients from around the world and is teaching through her website and through video classes and video conferences. Today, Connie lives in Los Angeles with her husband, Vic, and her dog. She's the mother of 3 adult children, Ben, Sarah, and Lauren. Hey, there he is, or she.
There she is. This is my dog, Mia.
So hi, Connie, welcome.
Hi, Nina. Thank you. We've been talking about doing this for a long time, haven't we?
That's true, and I'm so happy we're getting to have this conversation today, and I've been so looking forward to it. So thank you for being here with me.
Yeah. Wow. Just so that you and your audience know, my dog, here's my dog.
Aww.
She's in my lap and she's having a little sneezing fit, so there will be strange noises coming from off camera. Just pay attention to that.
Totally okay. So when I read your bio, there's always this one sentence that gives me the chills, and that is, while she slept her life away, she dreamed herself awake. And this sounds to me like a very hard but a very profound time in your life. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Sure. The backstory is I got a degree in a master's degree in radio, television, film production, but then I was kind of intimidated by the idea of actually working in, Hollywood. I moved to Nashville. I worked on a couple of films that were shooting on location in Nashville, as well as a television series that was shooting there. And so I kind of got my chops together and got my courage together and came back to Los Angeles. Started working in the industry. I absolutely loved it. I love the people here. I love the city. I love everything about it. I married a wonderful man. I had a sweet baby. We had a nice little house and everything was good. I was living the American dream, although I was kind of living in the fast lane. Mm-hmm. And one day I woke up ill, but I went to work anyway because I don't know why you do that, but you do. And I started this downward spiral at work. They sent me home at noon. They didn't even let me drive home and, let me drive me home. And I thought, okay, I've got the flu or something and I'll be better next week. And I just went down and down and down. And it was like I lost my mind. Mm-hmm. Things disappeared out of my brain. You know, like I couldn't remember what you're supposed to do when the phone rang to get it to stop ringing. Or I couldn't remember what a doorbell meant. I knew it meant something, but I couldn't remember what it meant. You know, those kinds of things. And it wasn't for several years that I was diagnosed, but it was some sort of brain virus, some sort of virus that hit my brain. And one of the primary symptoms was sleeping. I just couldn't stay awake for very long. So I was sleeping like 15 to 18 hours a day. And as you said, it went on for a couple of years. I completely lost my career, of course. And fortunately, because my husband and I were both in television production and our hours were so long and so unpredictable, that we did have a live-in housekeeper. So my daughter kind of didn't see the difference, you know. I was either gone or asleep, and the housekeeper was getting her to and from school and that, whatever. So at least she wasn't, you know, destroyed by losing her mother, but that's what happened. I slept for a long time. When I was awake during those few hours a day, I would try to jot down my dreams. I didn't remember from day to day what I had dreamed, you know, yesterday, but I did make a few notes. And so a couple of years later, when I stopped having to sleep all that much, you know, when I could stay awake for 12 hours a day, I started reading my dreams, and I saw that there were recurring dreams. And I'll give you an example. There was a woman in the dream. She looked kind of Native American. You know, she was short and kind of heavy, and she wore lots of turquoise jewelry, and, you know, and she would gather up a group of women, and she would take us into a cave, and there would be drawings on the walls of the cave, and she would ask us to reproduce the drawings. She would give us paper and utensils and whatever, and have us reproduce those drawings. And when we reproduced them to her satisfaction, she would let us take a nap. So that was like a great treat to get to take a nap in the dream. And I always remember at the end of every one of those dreams, she would, as I was going to sleep in the dream, she would point out the mouth of the cave at the full moon. And so I would go into a deeper sleep looking at the full moon. Well, I started seeing this dream come up again and again and again in my dream journal. So I got a lunar calendar, and sure enough, this woman had come into my dream on the full moon for 13 straight months.
Whoa.
That seemed like a message. So then I started looking at some of the other recurring dreams that I had. Man, stop. And they all came on under specific lunar circumstances. So I gathered a few friends around, and I told them this, you know, this story. And we started looking at our dreams according to where the moon was when we had the dream, or where and what other planets the moon might have been aspecting when we had the dream, and what that had to do with where the moon was when we were born. You know, so then we started realizing that the lunar influence on the dream is huge. It's like when you go to sleep, when you lie down you become a part of the crust of the earth. And just like the moon is pulling on the tides of the earth, the moon is pulling on the tides of your body. And so that opened up an entire world of how to look at dreaming differently than it's just a psychological experience that you're, you know, processing.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of my being a spiritual teacher. Since I really couldn't go back to work in the entertainment industry, I started just focusing on teaching this work. And after several years of working with people all over the country, and then eventually all over the world with it, I wrote a couple of books and published them, and yada, yada, yada. So that's why I say I dreamed myself awake. I literally, those dreams woke me up into a dimension of consciousness that I wouldn't have had, I think, any other way. And it woke me up to the deeper connection, deeper than just a psychological connection, between our waking life, our physical reality, and our dreaming life.
Mm-hmm.
So that work has been, that was the beginning of my spiritual work with other people. That first book is translated into several different languages through a website that I have called Turtle Dreamers, turtledreamers.com. We have international dream circles where women from all over the world are sharing dreams with each other, and we're finding out how we dream together. That's another really important piece of this, is under certain lunar circumstances, we have very similar dreams.
This
So
is interesting.
Yeah, so it just became more and more clear that the dreaming work is much bigger than most of us, realize that it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I give you one really great example?
Sure.
So it was the summer of 2001.
Mm-hmm.
I had several dream circles around the country operating according to the teachings in my book. And I had several dreamers from all over the world who would report into me, about their dreams from time to time. And we started having these dreams. Literally hundreds of dreams were reported to me about trying to call 911. In America, that is the emergency number. So we'd be trying to call 911 in our dreams because some crisis was happening, and we couldn't get through, or the person didn't speak our language, or we were put on hold and we were listening to music. And it was like this terribly frustrating thing where we couldn't get through to get help. And we went through all kinds of possibilities about what that was and why so many of us were dreaming that same dream. And were we supposed to not ask for help anymore? Was the help supposed to come from inside? All of these possibilities that we dreamed. And then came September 11th of 2001. Mm-hmm. And we realized, oh my God, that thing that was going to happen on September 11th was in the works. It was in it. People were talking about it. People were thinking about it. People were planning it. We dreamed into it. We perceived that something was happening. Some crisis was coming. Now, what do you do with that? Obviously, I wasn't going to be able to call the FBI and say, hi, I'm Connie and I'm a dreamer from California. And, but what that experience did do for us is show us, A, that we dream together, that we dream dreams together, and B, that we perceive possibility when we're in a dream.
Yes.
It's not just that we're reworking our own personal history. We're also perceiving the future and possibility of the future.
Yes. Oh, yeah. This is so meaningful. And while you spoke, I thought, isn't also September, so 9/11 is an emergency call, but in this case, it's also a date, right?
Yeah.
It almost has double significance in some way. Yeah.
Exactly. And dreams do that. Dreams are, they give you little puzzles and little ironic, clues, and that's what your brain perceives when you're in that level of consciousness where all possibility exists. You perceive the ironies and the clues and the hints and right. Mm-hmm. So yes.
Oh, dreaming is a fascinating thing. And thinking about your book, The Invisible Garment, there in the beginning, you describe a scene that you actually have not dreamt. But when you describe it, it sounds a little like a dream-like experience, maybe. And you call it meeting the angel. angels. So how did you experience this profound moment when it happened, and how is it actually for you today, remembering it years ago when it happened?
Yeah. So I had been doing this dreaming work for maybe about six years, maybe not quite so many, 4 years. When I was called home to be with my dad as he was dying. And my sisters and I were kind of taking turns sitting with him around the clock during the last few days of his life. And so it was my turn to be there from, I guess, midnight to dawn or something. It was definitely, a rough, sleep deprived kind of experience. And I was sitting next to his bed, and I heard the door open behind me. He was in not a hospital, but a facility. And I heard the door open behind me, but it was pre-dawn, so I knew it wasn't a guest or anything. And I thought it must be a nurse coming in to check his vitals. And I turned around, and there were these two angels standing there in the room. It was a belief crisis for me, because I didn't believe in angels. And this was in 1994, and at that particular time in sort of the American New Age world, there were a lot of angels and in disembodied spirits speaking through people and whatever. And I had a lot of judgment about that. I thought those people were probably, just a little bit wacko. So here I was looking at these two beings who were, they wouldn't have like halos and wings or anything, but they were very tall and they were backlit. And there was just this sense of absolute love in the room. It was palpable and it was amazing. But I never lost my cynical self. And so I said, why'd you use the door? And they said, we're here to open the portals. So I kind of went, okay. And at that moment, then they told me that there was a body of information that they wanted me to write down, that most people don't understand correctly what a human incarnation is, and it needs to be corrected, because if we don't start understanding what the human experiment is all about, then we're going to destroy ourselves, and that'll be that. So they said, most people think that taking an incarnation is about learning something, or about burning or creating karma, or about doing something, producing something. And they said, no, it's none of that. The reason you take a human incarnation is because you are here to deliver a gift from the level of soul into the level of form. And that's all you're here to do, is to deliver that gift, which is a spiritual, energetic gift. And it comes in the form of you, basically. So they were saying you're here to be that gift. And to the extent that you learn to be the gift that you're here to deliver, anything that you are to do will show up to be done. You don't have to spend your life, drawing a line down the middle of a page and doing the advantages and disadvantages of the, decision you're about to make. Everything that you are to do will come to you to be done, because you are the only one who can do it, right? Well, I was a little overwhelmed by what they were asking of me, and I was not kind of in the mood to become one of those people that sits on a stage and channels embodied spirits. So I kind of said I have some people that I could refer you to. And they were like, no, I don't think you heard what we said. We said, whatever you're supposed to do will come to you to be done. And here we are, you need to do this. And then I was kind of, my consciousness suddenly expanded, I guess, or blasted into some other dimension. And in that dimension, there was nothing but vibration and color and shape. And by vibration, I kind of mean sound. It was kind of like music.
Mm-hmm.
There were no words. There was no other human interfacing. And I knew that I was in that place where all the answers are, but I couldn't think of any questions. So it's like when you're in the place where all the answers are, there aren't any questions. So I just kind of rambled around, I guess, in that forest of geometric shape and color and sound for a while. And then I returned back to the room and I said, okay, I'll write it down, whatever it is that you want me to write down, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna tell anybody. And so they said, all right, you write it down and we'll send you the people who need to know. So then I saw my dad take his last breath at that very moment. And I sat there probably for about 45 minutes, just kind of wondering if I had gone completely cuckoo or, what that was. And then I, got on with the business of calling my sisters and my mother and doing the dying death thing. And then over the next few months, I would wake up every night around 3 or 3:30 in the morning and just kind of write for a while. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I was making anything up. It was just like that some things were coming through me to write. And it eventually became the book that you just held up. This body of information says there are 30 spiritual principles that interweave to create the human experiment. And when you're born, when you take your first breath, you sort of sign a contract with somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 of those 30 principles. Mm-hmm. It could be a few less because sometimes people double up, but a maximum of 12 of those principles become a weave that wraps itself around you like a swaddling cloth right there at that moment of first breath. And that weave stays with you as your influential spiritual DNA throughout your entire life. So if you learn what these principles are and learn how to let them express themselves through you, it's a profound transformation that no other spiritual system offers from my perspective, because it's concrete. It says these are the principles that you are here to be, that you're here to allow to express into the world through you. Nobody else has this configuration. This is you. This is who you are. So it's really a pretty amazing body of work. It's very complex on one level. It's very simple on another level. After you do a little bit of memorizing, where you really kind of learn what your principles are and learn how to watch them expressed through you, it becomes quite simple. And then it expands into learning to watch these principles interface in the world when they're allowed to express through human beings.
Yeah, and I remember when I first read the book, I was so fascinated. And then the things came together because I traveled to California and I contacted you and asked you if you'd explain my garment, my invisible garment to me. And it was such a meaningful time that we spent together. And it's just so, I felt so known and recognized and also understood and understanding better how I can deal with my life and the things it puts in front of me. And so this is also a reason why it's for me so meaningful to have this conversation today with you. And in your book, you write, the invisible garment outlines a practical way for you to chart the soul's purpose for your lifetime and therefore to understand your own spiritual wardrobe. And you divided it into 3 parts: remembering your invisible garment, understanding your invisible garment, and wearing your invisible garment. Would you give us an overview of what the 3 parts are about?
Sure. The remembering, really just has to do with the way we trace what your invisible garment is that we look at your natal chart, the astrological chart of when you were born. And each of those planets on your natal chart was at a very specific spot, in a very specific sign, in a very specific house at that moment that you were born. So each sign in the zodiac has 30 degrees. They're numbered 0 through 29. Each of these 30 principles, spiritual principles, has a numerological correspondent numbered 0 through 29. So your sun is, oh, I forgot to pull up your chart. Your sun is at 12 degrees of what? When were you born?
Let me see. December 4th, 1973, and it says number 12.
Oh no, my phone. I'm so sorry.
No problem. It's 12, creativity.
12, creativity. 12 degrees of Sagittarius.
Yes.
And as I recall, it's in the 6th house. So what we know is that your primary reason for incarnating this time is to deliver the gift of creativity in a fiery Sagittarian kind of way. And the 6th house is the healing house, the house of health. So in a healing kind of way. So we can just take a look at you and say, oh, look, you're living your principle. You are allowing your own access to creativity is allowing for, healing and active healing, not contemplative healing like it would be if it were in a water sign, right? So that's what I mean by remembering your garment. You look up all of your principles and you take a look at what they are and how they interface with each other. And you start to go, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a relief. Yeah, that is who I am. I might have thought some of those things were what was wrong with me and what needed fixing about me. But when you tell me that that's who I am, then that's such a relief, The next piece is, what is it? Remembering your garment.
Understanding your invisible garment.
So the understanding part is just hinted at it. Each of these principles has some certain specific influences. The first 10 principles, numbered 0 through 9, are principles that we call the ascending principles because they are very much connected to and rooted in nature. So they are ascending up through nature into an expression through the human body or the human experience. The top 10 principles, numbered 20 through 29, are called the descending principles because they're really pretty cosmic. They're the principles like peace and love and silence and desire is one of them. These principles are kind of cosmic in nature and they are descending for their fullest expression through the human body. And then the middle principles, numbered 10 through 19, are what we call the containing principles. These are the principles that are very uniquely human in nature, creativity being one of them, intelligence being one of them, focus being one of them, very human in nature. So sometimes when I'm teaching these, I put these principles on a tree. The descending principles are the branches and leaves of the tree. The containing principles are the trunk of the tree. And the ascending principles are the roots of the tree. Mm-hmm. You can take a look at your set of principles and kind of get a sense of where you sit, on that tree. Are you mostly containing? Are you mostly descending? Are you mostly ascending? Now, I, as I said, I forgot to call up your chart, but I remember the other day looking at your chart and noticing that your sun in creativity is primarily supported by your midheaven and moon, which, if I remember correctly, are both ascending principles. So you're deeply rooted you know, through your midheaven and your moon, your primary support system for your sun, you know, as this creative being.
Mm-hmm.
But the principles that create your personality, your mental body, your emotional body, your physical body, those are mostly descending principles.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So as a personality, you're kind of, you know, angelic or alien, but as a being, your commitment is very human, right? So just having those kinds of understandings, understanding your garment, is the second step. And this is the step where lots of people start crying, you know, when I talk to them. Like when I tell somebody, because maybe they have a lot of ascending principles, and so maybe they're mostly connected to nature. And I say something, you know, kind of outrageous, like, you know, you're barely human. You know, you're really more of a nature spirit, cleverly disguised as a human. And they'll go, yes, you know, like you said, feeling heard and seen and understood for the first time.
Yeah.
A lot of times, because of the nature of our cultures and the nature of parenting practices, we're told that that's what's wrong with us. You're too much of a nature spirit. You're too flighty. You're too, you know, pull it together. Come on, be a little more, you know. You're constantly told as a child that what you are is not okay, or often you are. And so, you know, we have to spend a lot of our adult lives getting over the lies that were told us about ourselves, you know, when we were children. Mm-hmm. So this understanding step of understanding your garment is big. And sometimes it takes a very long time, years and years, to fully understand why you didn't know that about yourself, or why only you knew that about yourself, you know. So that's the understanding part. And then wearing your garment is where it becomes easier. Wearing your garment is really just about, as I said earlier, allowing these principles to express themselves through you. And starting to notice how, under what circumstances they express most easily, so that you can create those circumstances as often as possible. You know, under what circumstances does creativity just flow through you? And I'll give you a hint. It flows through you when you're not aware of it. You know, if you say, okay, I'm going to sit down and be creative, you know, you'll get writer's block, or you'll get, you know.
Yeah, it's exactly what happens.
Yes. But if you're just being, these ideas will start flowing through you, and sometimes the manifestation of them will just flow, you know, because you have to, ironically, remember and understand your principles, and then sort of get over yourself and forget about them, so that they can flow through you without you're trying to manipulate them or control them, or sort of create them according to your misunderstanding of them, right?
Mm-hmm. And is that also what you mean when you say your invisible garment is about being, not doing?
Yes. Yes. It's about learning to be this principle. And that is probably the hardest part of this teaching. People who have been studying with me for years will still say, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. So I need, what do you think I need to do with this information, or with this material, or with this suggestion? And, you know, my answer is always the same. You need to check your beingness. You know, mm-hmm. If you can learn to be, then whatever it is that you are to do will show up to be done. You are the gift that you're here to deliver. So anytime you enter a room, anytime you, Nina, enter a room, creativity enters that room with you, mm-hmm. and is desiring to express itself through you. And to the extent that you can relax into that idea and be that idea, creativity is going to express through you.
Yeah, you know, I was just contemplating what you say, and there are types of situations in which I feel very tense, and then exactly the opposite happens. So zero creativity. So I feel like, yes, being and relaxing into it and just letting it happen.
Yeah, we feel tense in situations because we have preconceived expectations of something, you know, whether we're in, are we going to be judged, or are we going to say the right thing, or are we going to cause some disturbance, or, you know, are we going to be well received? So those are all echoes of lies that we were told about ourselves. You know, no, you're not enough. No, you're not okay. No, you know, you won't be well received because you're a girl. You know, all of those things still echo around, you know, for a good portion of our lives until we learn how to let that just go, so that the principles are the motivators, not the lies.
Yeah, and I think you are so right with what you said before, that I mean, it's not only I have my garment, everybody has it. And so to know the spouse's garments, and maybe not more important, but equally important, your children's garment, would probably ease everybody more into life. And if I imagine my parents, if they had known what is my garment, my life today might be totally different. And I don't want to say it's bad, but I surely recognize through what you say that had I been seen and understood in this way already when I was a child, I would have probably been able to make different choices or see different opportunities, or
or just be more self-confident.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not have to spend, I mean, most of us spend a big portion of our lives having to get over problems that we have with ourselves that don't even really exist.
Yes.
Beliefs that we have about ourselves that are not true, like that we shouldn't be so connected to nature. We shouldn't be, you know, so cosmic, you know, in our thinking. So yes, and you know, I really think that is some of the most important work that I do, is working with parents and showing them what their children's gift is, and how their garment pattern and their children's garment pattern is either, you know, where there are similarities and where there are differences. And so you can make different kinds of choices about how you parent based on realizing that they don't need to be like you, right? Yeah, I'm just thinking about sometimes parents who push their kids to make decisions when their kids' mental body is one that needs to process a lot of information before they make decisions. You know, it just the idiocy of our cultures that say at age 18 you should know what you want to be for the rest of your life, and you should go to college and get trained to do that, and then you should get a job and do that for the rest of your life. Come on. Who knows at 18 what their possibilities are, you know? Yeah. Especially if they haven't been parented in a way where their gift and their ability to recognize possibility is dominant. Yeah. So yeah, just how different would it have been if my parents had known me rather than knowing that they have a child that needs to behave properly. You know what I mean? Yeah. I so agree. I really so agree. And I also tell people really often, you know, if you don't have a certain principle in your garment pattern, you will tend to marry it or give birth to it. Or you'll look at your mother's garment pattern and you'll see that it was there. You know, it's like family dynamics are where we see that all of the principles start to really work together.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the uniqueness of how everybody's configuration of principles, you know, everybody's configuration is totally unique. And yet, when a small family unit cluster together and honor each other's uniqueness, something bigger happens. There's another entity, you know, that surrounds a family dynamic that's very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And browsing through your description of the invisible garment knowledge in your online course, I've read one thing that I would like to ask you about, because for me, it was super relieving. And it says, forget wishing for things to be tidy, randomness and chaos breed possibility. So how does that relate to the invisible garment work?
Well, randomness is actually one of the principles, one of the invisible garment principles. It's one of the descending principles. And randomness has to do with your ability to hold opposing concepts without, you know, going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a frontal lobes kind of thing. If you can hold opposing concepts, opposing ideas, opposing possibilities without needing to eliminate one of them, then randomness gets to express itself through you. And so I compare it to looking through a kaleidoscope.
Mm-hmm.
So you look through a kaleidoscope, you see a pattern. You turn it, and all of the rocks start going chinka, 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 chink until they strike a new pattern.
Mm-hmm.
The pattern is so different from the other pattern that you can't imagine that it's the same rocks, but it is. Randomness is that chinka, chinka, chink time when you have the patience to let all of the possibilities stir around until the next right one shows up, and then you can go with that. So if you have randomness in your garment pattern somewhere, you are one of those fortunate people on one hand who has the ability to live in the kind of chaos that we're in right now globally without needing to polarize.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, that's a very healthy, helpful principle to have when you're in the midst of chaos. I'll give you a quick example. Speaking of parenting, a girlfriend of mine has a child. She's a grown-up woman now, the child is, but when she was a child, randomness, I believe it was her mental body. I believe it was her Mercury principle, her mental body, randomness. So now it became time for her to decide which college to go to. She applied to several, 8 or 9 colleges. She got accepted to almost all of them. And they weren't just schleppy little colleges. We're talking about Harvard and Wellesley and Yale. And she got accepted to, you know, the elite schools in America. She couldn't make up her mind. They lived on the West Coast. They're not super wealthy people. They had to make like 6 trips back to the East Coast for her to visit these colleges over and over and over and over because she couldn't make up her mind. Now, if the mother hadn't known that randomness was her mental body and that that's what she needed to do to make up her mind, they would have pushed her much earlier. They would have shamed her. They would have said, we can't afford all of this, and this is crazy, and you're not being responsible, and just make up your mind. But they didn't, because they knew that randomness was her mental body. That's the way she had to do it for it to be right, you know, for her to find the right place.
Yeah.
It was a surprising place. She went to Wellesley. She didn't go to Harvard. You know, and there's something really admirable about choosing the exact right place for you. So Yeah, so that's what I mean by parenting according to your child's gift.
Yeah, and this is so fascinating, and I think it is so helpful for everybody in the family. And so if our listeners would like to know more about their invisible garment, and or are interested in learning more about dreaming, and if they'd like to connect with you and work with you, what are their options?
All right, so I have two different websites. One is Turtle Dreamers, the animal, turtledreamers.com. And that's the website where I have a lot of information about the dreaming work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what International Dream Circle is. And that's also, there's also like just a free space where you can post your dreams and people respond to each other's dreams there. So if dreaming is the primary interest, then you can go there. The dreaming books and the lunar calendar, I have a lunar calendar dream journal option that you can subscribe to there. The other one is theinvisiblegarment.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, there's a lot of information on theinvisiblegarment.com, a lot of free ways to explore your own principles. There's a description of how to find out what your principles are, and a lot of information about how to explore your own principles. And also there, I think there's a page called Work with Connie that describes all of the different ways that I work with people, ranging from teaching classes to private sessions to personal sessions and whatever. So that's all there. And also on that homepage of theinvisiblegarment.com is a section called Connie Kaplan's Classroom. Yes. Because I have finally learned how to teach this work. I've finally learned how to put the invisible garment work into a form where you can study it slowly and gently and in your own pace, and or with a class, mm-hmm. and or with me. And the classes consist of, most of the teachings are on video, where you just watch these talking head person giving the teachings in short digestible bits, like mm-hmm. little 10-minute videos that you can watch over and over and over until you're like, all right, I think I got that, and move on. And then there are options to, speak directly with me and to speak directly with other people who are taking the class. So all of those are great ways to, deeply investigate your own invisible garment. Oh, and one more thing. Mm-hmm. On the invisiblegarment.com, there is an option to purchase a workbook. And the workbook is, it's pretty thick. It's probably a couple of 100 pages. And I take your personal garment, your unique configuration, and the workbook is full of information to you about your principles, about you. So that's also a very powerful and kind of lifelong study guide. It's something you study it for a while. People all the time tell me they studied it for a while and then they put it away, and then 5 years later they found it when they were cleaning out a closet and went back through it, and like, oh my God, not only did things start to change in their lives when they learned what their garments were, but there's a lot of information in there that they didn't get the first time because mm-hmm. maybe they weren't quite ready for it. So
yeah. Now, for everybody who is watching right now, you'll find all the information that you need about Connie and her work below this interview. So don't worry if you can't remember it. And I think we're at such a beautiful point of this beautiful conversation to close, but I wouldn't want to say goodbye without asking you if there's anything else that you would like to add to our conversation here.
I want to go back and finish answering a question that I kind of overlooked that you asked earlier about how I see that experience with the angels now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As to how I saw it then. I feel that when I remember that moment, I still remember seeing those beings. I still remember the palpable sense of love in the room. I still remember the conversation between me and them. But after doing all of this work with the invisible garment and understanding my own garment better and understanding what a human incarnation is in a different way, I believe that what happened in that moment was that a portal actually did open. Consciousness expanded. Not just my consciousness, but consciousness itself expanded and increased possibility in that room. And at the time, I couldn't understand it as being me expanding. I could only understand it as being other coming into, to tell me something. But over the years of working with people with their invisible garments, I can tell you for sure that the transformation that happens as a result of understanding and wearing your garment is that consciousness can expand and contract as it needs to in any given moment. You can actually be in that place where all the answers are in any given moment. And at the same time, you can come right back into the room and focus on what is in front of you that is showing up that needs to be done. So I wanted to end that way because I want to say it's very, very important for every individual to realize his or her unique spiritual possibilities. Mm-hmm. Don't project onto me that I had a special experience that you can't have, or don't project onto other teachers, oh, their life must be really, really great and mine's not. That's a thing that we're guilty of doing. Oh, I wish I could see angels, or oh, I wish I could see. It's not really about that. It's really about allowing these principles to be the dominating focus in your life, the dominating energy and influence in your life, so that consciousness can be as large or as small, like a telescope or a microscope. It's got the whole range within you. And the way to be available to that range is to get over all of the little belief systems that we have that make ourselves little and just allow consciousness to operate through you. It sounds like I'm telling you to become a cosmic couch potato, and it's not that at all. It's allowing bigness. It's an irony. This work is an irony because what it asks you to do is eliminate everything that is not you, right? It's not asking you to take in something bigger and something newer. It's asking you to eliminate everything that makes you little, everything that limits your ability to be fully present to all that is. And that's what we have to do if we're going to not destroy ourselves. We have to eliminate our littleness. We have to eliminate the things that we believe that make us kill each other. We have to eliminate the things that we believe that make us hate ourselves, mm-hmm. or that make us diminish ourselves. So that's what I wanted to say about how that experience has changed in my, it hasn't changed in my memory, but it's changed in my interpretation over the years of working with the garment principles.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like adding something here doesn't fit because it's so round and so beautiful. And thank you for coming back to this point. And mm-hmm. I would like to thank you from my heart for being here with me and us right now, and for sharing your wisdom and your time. And I'm so glad we're having this conversation, and I want to thank you for it very, very much.
Me too. I'm very glad to have this conversation. I've been looking forward to it, and I want to just turn that mirror back on you and thank you from my heart, because your work is so important, and the way you're doing it, the way you're this international opportunity for us to meet each other and know each other and influence each other and assist each other and support each other, that's coming through you because of creativity that's coming through you. And I appreciate that. I've loved the few times we've gotten to spend with each other, either through technology or being in the same space with each other.
Yeah, and I'm already now looking forward to really being able to hug you the next time when I'm in California, because I think that's one thing that this wonderful technology is still missing. It's the ability to really look into each other's eyes at the same time and to exchange a good hug.
Exactly.
So, bye everybody. And always remember to take the driver's seat of the car called your life and create this lifetime to your taste. It is our pleasure here at Mind Gourmet to support you with our food for thought. Bye, Connie. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.